My mom called me a freeloader online. She forgot whose name was on the deed. Welcome to Broken Promise Files. The day I finally moved out of my parents' house, my mother took a picture of our empty driveway, posted it on Facebook, and wrote, "After all these years, the freeloader is finally gone." Clinking glasses, over 1,200 people reacted. Neighbors, relatives, old classmates. They all thought I was the lazy adult daughter my parents had finally kicked out. There was just one problem. The house she was bragging about, it was never hers, it was mine. My name is Jessica Cole. I'm 29. And this is how my family tried to humiliate me in front of everyone we know, and how they ended up losing the only house they ever felt important in. I had always imagined leaving would be quiet. No screaming, no thrown suitcases, just a car, some boxes, and a clean exit. I packed like someone trying not to start a fight. Boxes sealed too tightly. Shoes wrapped in old sweatshirts. My laptop bag held against my chest like a shield. I waited until the house was empty. Then I rolled my last box down the same driveway I'd ridden my bike on as a kid. For a second, standing there with the sun in my eyes and my whole life shoved into the back of a rented truck, I felt something dangerously close to relief. I closed the truck door, got in my car, and drove to my new one-bedroom apartment across town. No one stopped me. No one chased me down. No one asked where I was going. In their heads, I think they still believed I would be back by dinner. I carried a couple of boxes up the stairs, dropped them onto the living room floor, and sat down in the middle of the empty space. It was quiet. Then my phone buzzed. Not a call, not a text. A notification. Someone had tagged me. I opened Facebook and saw it, the photo of the driveway I had just left, the house in the background, my old bedroom window in the corner. Caption, "Finally, the freeloader is gone. Time for her to face the real world." Smiling face with smiling eyes. At first, I actually laughed. It was so on brand for my mother, Linda, that it almost felt fake. Then I saw the number underneath. 1,234 reactions. People weren't just seeing it, they were celebrating it. The comments stacked up like bricks. "Proud of you, Linda. Tough love is the only love that works now. I could never let my grown kid live off me like that. She'll thank you one day when she wakes up." Linda replied to one. "No more cooking or laundry for a failure." I did my part. Person female, my dad, Richard, didn't comment. He just liked a post that said, "Unemployed people need to learn to live on their own. Parents aren't retirement plans." That was the part that made my hands stop shaking, not the insult, the certainty. They had decided who I was, and 100 strangers had agreed, without knowing the first thing about my life. I didn't reply, I didn't argue, I didn't defend myself. I scrolled down and read each name. Neighbors, cousins, the woman down the street who used to wave when I brought in her packages, a girl from high school I barely remembered. Then I did something that would look pathetic to anyone watching. I liked their comments. Every single one. I needed them relaxed. I needed them smug. I needed them to believe they were right, and I was too weak to do anything but silently accept it. Then I put the phone face down on the floor of my new apartment, looked around at the boxes I hadn't unpacked yet, and made one decision. I was done protecting people who were proud to humiliate me. To understand why that Facebook post exploded in their faces, you have to understand the house behind it. We moved into that house when I was 8. Not because my parents, Linda and Richard, had worked their way up and finally bought their dream home. Because my grandmother, Evelyn, let us. Evelyn was Linda's mother and the only person in that family who could look you in the eye and tell the truth without dressing it up. She was old school. Lists, receipts, no nonsense. She'd show up with a grocery bag, open our pantry, and say, "Why is there nothing here but cereal when I saw 3 delivery boxes in your trash this week?" Linda would laugh too loudly and say, "Mom, relax. It's just timing. We're in between paychecks." What she meant was, please stop saying the quiet part out loud. Evelyn didn't hate my mother. She hated how my mother handled money. Endless shopping for the house. Trips she couldn't afford. Borrowing from Evelyn with a sweet voice, then getting offended when Evelyn calmly asked for it back. By the time I was 8, Linda and Richard were drowning, so we moved. That's how Linda told it. "We're moving into Grandma S," she said, as if we were all equal in this arrangement. Just until things settle. Just until things settle lasted over 20 years. The neighborhood was the kind people brag about: sidewalks, trimmed lawns, people who put themed wreaths on their front door each month. Evelyn's house was the nicest on the block. My older sister, Brianna, walked around like a princess in her castle. My parents acted like we'd finally made it. Evelyn treated it like a test. To the neighbors, Linda and Richard were homeowners. They hosted barbecues, complained about their mortgage, and gave kitchen tour like they'd picked out every tile themselves. Evelyn never corrected them in public. But she never stopped paying attention. When I was 22, Evelyn died. Linda cried at the funeral like the sky had fallen. I'd seen that same performance over late notices and overdrawn accounts. A week later, we sat in a lawyer's office. Linda in a black dress, clutching a tissue. Richard quiet beside her. Brianna scrolling her phone. Me in a stiff chair, expecting to sign something minor. The lawyer opened a folder, adjusted his glasses, and said, "Mrs. Evelyn Cole made her wishes very clear some years back. She asked that we read them exactly as written." He slid a stack of papers across the desk. "The property at 14 Maple Grove," he said, "is being left to Jessica Cole." Everything in the room froze. Linda's expression snapped through confusion, anger, then a smile that looked like it hurt. "Oh," she said quickly. "Of course, Jessica's our responsible one. She'll take care of us." "That's what Mom meant." Brianna looked offended. Richard cleared his throat. The lawyer went on. "Linda and Richard could stay in the house as long as they wished, so could Brianna." There was no timer. No threat of eviction for simply existing. But the title, the ownership, the power to sign or refuse anything involving the house, that was mine. Evelyn had put it in writing because she didn't trust Linda not to treat the house like a credit card. I should have spoken up. I should have asked to think, to talk to someone, to let it sink in. Instead, I was 22 and grieving and used to keeping the peace. So I nodded, signed where they pointed, and went home, or at least to the place everyone still called Linda's house. Within a month, nothing on the surface had changed, except Linda's confidence. She launched straight into hosting barbecues again, gave neighbors tour of her kitchen. Told people, "We finally got the house in our name, years of struggle, but worth it." Richard came up with renovation ideas he'd never actually do. Brianna took pictures in the backyard and posted them with captions like, "So grateful for our beautiful family home." My name was on the deed. Theirs were on every story. A few months after the lawyer meeting, Linda cornered me in the kitchen. She had a dish towel over her shoulder and that brittle, hurt mother look ready to go. "Things are tight," she sighed. "Your father's hours got cut. The electric bill is insane. You're an adult now, Jess. You can't live here for free forever." I hesitated. "How much?" I asked. She sighed louder. "I'm not asking for the world, just something. $250 a month. You have a roof, food, everything. You can manage that." Acid rose in my throat. I could have said, "This roof is mine." I could have said, "You live here because Evelyn trusted me, not you." Instead, I said, "Okay." For the next 7 years. I paid $250 every month to live in a house I legally owned. No lease, no contract, just guilt. I paid while takeout showed up on weekends, while new decor appeared in the living room. While Linda posted photos of our house with captions like, "Turning this place into a home, one hard-earned dollar at a time." Every time I tried to remind myself that, on paper, I was the owner. The word stuck in my throat. In that house, ownership didn't matter. Only control did. From the outside, I looked like the easiest stereotype in the world. I was always home, usually in leggings and an old hoodie. My car barely moved. To my parents, that was proof enough. Real work in their heads meant a uniform, a commute, a boss with a name you could brag about at a barbecue. Anything else was laziness. What they never bothered to ask was what I did on that laptop I was glued to all day. My bedroom wasn't a hiding place. It was an office. For 5 years, I worked as a freelance conversion copywriter and e-commerce funnel strategist. The title was long enough that people's eyes glazed over when I tried to say it. Eventually, I stopped. In practice, I wrote the words that made people actually buy things. Product pages that doubled little stores, online sales. email campaigns that turned dead lists into real customers, landing pages that stopped small businesses from bleeding money. I had contracts, retainers, invoices, deposits. Money went into an account Linda didn't know existed. One afternoon, I tried to explain it to her. Just once, she waved her hand. "Everybody's online these days," she said. "Sitting on a computer is not a real job. Try standing on your feet 8 hours a day." Brianna's version was meaner. She told her friends I was probably doing something sketchy online and laughed like that was just her sense of humor. It was a script. After that, I stopped correcting anyone. I bought a mini fridge for my room so I wouldn't be accused of stealing their food. I did my laundry late so nobody could complain I was always in the way. I stopped sitting at the dinner table, where I'd be talked over like I wasn't there. The isolation wasn't an accident, it was self-defense. The worst part wasn't the money or the work, it was how they talked about me when I was standing right there. Like I was a permanent problem they had heroically chosen to bear. When my then-boyfriend found out I still lived at home at 28, he tried to be polite, but I saw the shift. He sat across from me and said, "I just don't know if I can see a future with someone who hasn't really launched." I tried to explain the house, the deed, Evelyn's decision. The years of rent and bills. He didn't want a complicated story. He wanted a one-sentence explanation he could repeat to his friends. "She still lives with her parents." He left. Linda took that as confirmation. "If you had a real job, he wouldn't have walked," she said. Men don't want to raise another child. Brianna called it predictable. They thought they were witnessing my failure. They didn't realize they were helping me make a choice. There's a difference between being stuck and staying still on purpose. I wasn't stuck. I was positioning myself. I decided I was leaving. Not in a dramatic explosion, not in a panic. Clean, once. I gave myself 18 months. I tracked everything. I raised my rates. I negotiated contracts longer than 3 months. I built a cushion big enough that even a bad streak of work wouldn't send me running back. Linda assumed I was wasting time online. Brianna assumed I was a joke. While they rolled their eyes at my laptop, I was buying myself freedom piece by piece. Eventually, my numbers made sense. I started looking for a place of my own. I didn't tell a soul, no hints. "No, I'm thinking about moving." No room for sabotage. I found a small one-bedroom outside Columbus. Nothing fancy, neutral walls, old carpet, quiet building, but it would be mine. Closing was faster than I expected. I signed, I paid, I put the keys in my pocket and drove to the empty apartment. I stood in the center of the living room, no furniture, no noise, and for the first time in years I could actually feel my shoulders drop. I moved in stages. First, documents and electronics. Then clothes, then books. By the time I rented a truck for the last load, most of what mattered was already gone. I waited until Linda and Richard left for the day. Then I started carrying furniture out. The desk I'd worked at, the chair Brianna used to sit in while mocking my imaginary job, the bookshelf I'd bought with my own money. I was tightening a strap around the last piece when Linda's car turned into the driveway earlier than usual. She stopped, got out, looked at the truck like it was parked on her chest. "What is this?" she asked, like I'd done something rude to a stranger. "I'm moving out," I said. I was surprised how steady my voice sounded. Brianna appeared in the doorway, phone already in her hand, eyes lit up like she'd just found a new piece of gossip. "Seriously," she said. "With what money, Jess?" Richard came to stand behind them, silent judge of the driveway. They didn't ask where I was going, they asked how. "That apartment is mine," I said. "I paid for it. I've had work for years." The silence after that was almost funny. Linda blinked, then scoffed. "Sitting at a laptop doesn't count as work," she said. "You don't understand what real bills are. You barely help here, you'll be back." Brianna tilted her head. "Sure you will," she said. "This is you being dramatic as usual." Richard narrowed his eyes. "Who's really helping you?" he asked. "No one is renting you a place without a real job. Did you trick someone into this?" I wasn't going to hand them proof to rip apart. "I'm done living here," I said, "and I'm done being treated like a burden." Linda launched into a speech about how much they'd sacrificed, how hard life was, how evil it was for me to abandon them. I closed the truck. I got in my car. I drove away. For the first time in my life, the air felt like it was mine to breathe. That's when the Facebook post went up. I let them have their week. Their comments, their likes, their public victory lap over the freeloader they imagined they'd finally shoved out. I wanted them overconfident. Then, 7 days after I moved, I woke up, made coffee, set my laptop on the table in my quiet apartment, and opened the folder I'd been building for years. The deed, the will, the probate paperwork. The letter from the lawyer confirming Evelyn's clear instructions. Paper doesn't care about Facebook. I printed what I needed, then I wrote a letter, not a rant, not a threat, a statement. I told them, in plain language, that I was the legal owner of the house, that they had been allowed to live there by my choice, that their public behavior showed they no longer respected that choice. From now on, we would handle everything in writing, with clear terms and deadlines. They would have 2 options: sign a month-to-month lease at fair market rent, with all utilities transferred into their own names by a specific date, or provide a written move-out plan and vacate the property within the legal notice period. No yelling, no name-calling, just choices. I took the letter to the post office and sent it certified, signature required. Then I emailed a copy to both Linda and Richard, attached the relevant documents, and saved all the receipts. Then I put my phone down and finished my coffee. The first call came 10 minutes later, then another, and another. Within an hour, my screen looked like an alarm, 20+ missed calls. Dozens of messages, Linda's texts yanked back and forth between attack and guilt. How can you do this to us? Are you trying to kill your father? Family doesn't evict each other. You're being brainwashed by someone. This isn't you. Richard left 3 voicemails in a row. Each one colder. You don't know what you're doing. Any real lawyer will laugh at this. No judge will let a daughter throw her parents out. You'll look insane, Brianna messaged like I'd embarrassed her. Okay, point made. Can you stop now? You're being extra for no reason. People are texting me about this. You're making us look bad. I read everything. Then I sent one message in the family group chat, a screenshot of Linda's post, the caption, the comments, the likes. Underneath, I typed, "You said I didn't live there and never contributed. I'm just making that true." Then I put my phone away. I'd given them a choice. The rest was their decision. The deadline came and went. No signed lease. No utilities transferred. No move-out date. Just more messages trying to win an argument instead of solve a problem. So I kept doing what I'd said I would do. I called the electric company and ended service under my name effective that date. I did the same with gas and internet. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like filing taxes. The morning the shutoffs took effect, my phone lit up again. Linda's voice on the other end was almost screaming. "The power is out, Jessica. The house is freezing. The stove won't even light. Your father can't do anything without Wi-Fi. Turn it back on." I ended service under my name, I said. You were supposed to open your own accounts. It's in the letter. You can't do this, she sobbed. You're making us look like fools. What will the neighbors think when they find out what you did to your own parents? You were happy to let them think I was a freeloader, I said. They'll adapt. She shifted gears instantly. I didn't mean the post like that, she said. Everyone jokes online. Your sister is dramatic. You know how it is. Don't throw away your family over a joke. I gave you options, I said. Pick one, then I ended the call. Richard called next. Less shouting, more panic. Put the utilities back, he said. We'll talk, we'll fix this. We are your parents. We are not your tenants. You told the whole world I was dead weight, I said. You didn't want to be my parents when there were likes involved. You wanted to be martyrs. He told me I'd regret this. I told him the court system doesn't care who feels entitled. It cares who has the paperwork. They lasted a few days in the dark. Then they took their suitcases and their pride to my aunt's tiny house across town. The same people who had called me a freeloader ended up sleeping on someone else's spare bed. Brianna's posts shifted to vague quotes about toxic people. Linda started telling coworkers I had turned on her. She cried in break rooms, left out details, borrowed money. The story she'd built for years, long-suffering mom versus lazy daughter, started cracking. Because the same people who had rushed to praise her tough love had now seen screenshots of something else. the deed with my name, the will, pieces of the truth she'd never mentioned. Neighbors messaged me privately. "I'm sorry, I didn't know. Wait, the house was yours, so they called you a freeloader while living in your house?" I didn't write paragraphs back. When someone asked, I sent 2 images, a cropped shot of the deed with my name and the county stamp, a screenshot of Linda's freeloader post. No extra words. People filled in the blanks on their own. The same mouths that had swallowed her story whole now started asking questions she couldn't dodge. The public collapse she'd feared her whole life wasn't about losing the house. It was about losing her audience. The legal part moved slower, but it was simple. Every notice I'd sent was documented. Every step backed by paper. When it finally reached the point where I needed a judge involved, we all ended up in the same room again. Linda showed up dressed like she was going to appeal for donations. Richard tried to stand close enough to intimidate me. Brianna walked in with her phone in her hand like she was waiting for a camera. The judge didn't care about any of it. They cared about dates, signatures, documents. Linda cried. Richard argued. Brianna tried to talk over me. I didn't raise my voice once. I handed over certified mail receipts, copies of the lease they refused, screenshots of the public post that made informal one-sided, proof that they'd been offered options and declined. The judge made an order. It wasn't dramatic. It was procedural. They had to leave. Outside the courtroom, Linda grabbed my arm hard enough that her nails dug in. "You're really going through with this," she whispered. "You're going to ruin us?" Brianna hissed that I was evil. Richard told me to be reasonable. I looked at Linda's hand on my sleeve and gently moved it away. "I offered you a lease," I said. "I offered you time. You chose pride." Then I walked away. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt steady, like someone who'd finally put down a weight they weren't built to carry. I didn't stand in the driveway and watch them leave. This wasn't a movie. I stopped by the house briefly with my attorney's instructions in mind, just to document the condition. Richard wouldn't meet my eyes. Linda slammed drawers like she could hurt the walls. Brianna kept muttering about betrayal while stacking her suitcases. At one point she said loudly, "People are going to find out what kind of person you really are, Jess." I nearly laughed. The only reason anyone knew anything was because they dragged me into the town square first. They built the stage. I just stepped off it. When they finally drove away, the house looked the same from the street. Inside, it felt different. I walked through each room and saw it clearly for the first time. The kitchen where Linda complained about cooking for a grown child while ordering delivery for herself. The living room where Brianna laughed at comments calling me useless. The hallway I had crept down quietly for years, trying not to bother anyone in a house I legally owned. I didn't cry. I took photos for the file, locked the door, left. The house had been a cage long before my name went on the deed. I didn't need to keep the cage just because the key was mine now, so I sold it. People think that's the cruelest part. Selling the family home? They don't understand. Keeping it would have kept me tied to them, to their drama, to the constant threat of them trying to edge their way back in. I didn't want leverage. I wanted freedom, so I listed it, signed more papers, let it go. When the sale closed, I sat at my little kitchen table in my apartment, stared at the confirmation on my laptop, and felt my nervous system finally believe what my brain had known for a while. I was safe. I used the money in a way nobody in my family ever had. I invested in my work, upgraded equipment, paid for real training, hired an accountant so my taxes would never become a weapon, built an emergency fund big enough that I would never again stay in a place because I was afraid of running out, and I found a therapist, not because I was broken. Because I was tired of hearing freeloader in my own head every time I tried to rest. Do I feel guilty? No, I feel sad sometimes, not because they lost the house. Because I never really had a family to begin with, just people who liked the idea of me owing them everything while they owed me nothing. Love without respect is just control with nicer language. Family without boundaries is just a permission slip for abuse. Linda thought her Facebook post was a victory lap. She wanted applause. She wanted everyone to agree that I was the problem. What she forgot is that, when you drag someone into the spotlight to humiliate them, you climb up there too. The moment I stopped protecting her image and quietly laid out the truth, the story collapsed. I didn't have to ruin them. They did that to themselves. All I did was stop, shielding them from the consequences they'd been dodging for years. If it helped you even a little, please hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that they're not alone. I'll see you in the next story.